Today's episode of our interview series is with Aoife Lane. She's a member of Pembroke here and a wonderful artist. I'm sure there's plenty of her paintings hanging on Pembroke members' walls at this stage. But without further ado, Aoife, welcome.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
Great. How are you keeping in these interesting COVID times?
Yeah, good. I'm down here in Wexford, so down at my mommy and daddy and getting well fed. So yeah, it's good. Down in the sunny southeast.
Very good. Getting a little bit of home care. Love it.
Yes,
So,
very much so.
Aoife, we'll just jump straight in. How'd you get involved with Pembroke? I suppose that's the best diving off point.
Yeah, I suppose I was playing in UCD when I was in college and just loved it. Like that, I play with the Lady Sevens, so it was really just to kind of have a bit of a community while in Dublin and like that, when you're in college and you're coming up from the country, like you're there with all your school pals and you all live together and all that kind of stuff. But like when you finish college, like you kind of go off and we all kind of follow different directions. So I knew I kind of needed something that was outside of work or anything like that. And like when I was in UCD, I remember playing against Pembroke and just kind of feeling like it was a similar vibe. It was good fun. Like they were a nice crowd that, like when you played against them and stuff. And to be honest, it was a lot to do with the purple and gold. Just went with the Wexford colours and I was like, we'll go with that. But yeah, that was kind of it. And again, it was all very basic stuff, like walking distance from where I was living and stuff. But like a lot of it was down to just when I was playing against them in UCD that I just really liked the feel of the club, I suppose. So yeah.
Yeah, it's got a great feel and nice social aspect, especially down with the lower teams, that you get that nice balance of social and the sport. And obviously there's something inbuilt, as you said, with the Wexford colours, and I'm sure you're not the only one. So you moved across and you've sort of become, you've made a bit of a group, or that group of sevens, was that something that came together as you sort of started training together, or did you guys all know each other before you came in?
Yeah, no, I didn't know anyone coming in. I had a few girls from UCD that I knew, but yeah, just kind of we all started training together. I think Aoife Kelly is definitely a big name there because she's just so involved in the club and she kind of encouraged us all to, I suppose, get involved. But we just started, we trained together and you'd spend a lot of time just either training or weekends or in cars, just going to matches and stuff. And we all just clicked and got on well. And we started doing things like bike row ski over in I can't even remember where it is, but anyway, we'd come over to Pembroke, we'd all get in the car and we'd drive across and stuff. And it was just, we started doing stuff like outside of Pembroke and, obviously socials and things like that. But like even over lockdown, it's been lovely because like for me, definitely you kind of still have the connection while you're not in Dublin, and you're still connected to your friends in Dublin. And we started our kind of a cycle club nearly, and we're doing cycles all around different places. We went to Kerry and stuff when restrictions lifted, and it just kind of fell into place. Like when you find a nice friend group and we've all become really close. And I know some of the girls, they all went to school together and are a group of friends already. But like, it's nice that there's about 5, 6, 7 of us kind of that just, hang out a lot outside of hockey as well.
That really makes a club experience, doesn't it? Having that group, you're all in it together. Yeah. I suppose we're blessed with the facilities that do facilitate it a little bit, as you mentioned, socials and whatnot. But for sure, especially now, like having a crew that you can kind of rely on and keep in touch. Some way, even the ways just people are sort of staying in touch with the club without being able to be in touch with the club is great.
Yeah,
it's great to see. You mentioned UCD. So what did you study when you were there? Were you there for long?
Yeah, I did all my studying there. So I did an undergrad in English and history. Barely can spell, like terrible choice for me, but it was grand. Like arts is one of those topics you can get an arts degree, but to get a good one's hard enough. And like I couldn't tell you anything about Shakespeare or anything that happened in history. Like I waste probably on me, but it was a good stepping stone anyway. And sure, I just wanted to go to UCD. I just had it in my head. I wanted to go to UCD. Loads of my friends from home were going there and like we had a ball. Like it was great. We all lived together, like caused carnage. It was great crack. But then I went on and did my master's in sports and exercise management. So that was brilliant. Like really enjoyed that. Really kind of it was a great course, but like was really interested in what I was doing as well. So and UCD is a great university, just even from all aspects, whether it's sport, education, like you can jump from something like English and history into sport, which was brilliant. So yeah, loved it. It was brilliant experience.
That's quite a sideways step. How did that come about? What prompted you? Had you always been that sort of sport connection, or what prompted that?
Yeah, like I'm absolutely no athlete in any shape or form. And none of my family are either. My dad actually played hurling, I think, for Cork when he was like under 16s or something like that. And it's his big claim to fame. But yeah, like always loved sport, always was into it, was always involved in different clubs, like whether it be the Gorey Hockey Club or I did try to play rugby in Gorey once, but they had no girls team. So, swimming, all that kind of stuff, like just enjoyed it. And actually for my leaving cert, I did put down, my first choice was health and performance science. And my second choice was sports and exercise management, the undergrad. But actually, it was actually my art leaving cert didn't go well for me. So it brought my points down. So I didn't end up getting my first choice. And I'd taken sports and exercise management, which I would have gotten as the undergrad off. So I ended up in arts. And then just as the year went on, I still just kind of, like the 3 years of my undergrad went on, and I still kind of feel like I wanted to do something in sport, just kind of very organically just came about and got into the masters. And like that, never planned it, but just kind of always went with what I felt was good for me, and love working in sport, love every part of sport that's not like, and I think that's one thing about the industry is that you don't have to be an athlete to be involved in it. And I think something like Pembroke, like that, like you can be highly involved in the club, but you don't have to be on the top teams to be that. And I think that's what Pembroke does really well as well. And like that, it really appeals to me because I'm not in that boat of athlete, but I am working it with elite athletes and I am working in sport and I love it. Like it's a brilliant experience.
Yeah, that's a nice little segue. You're involved with rugby?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a player development manager with Rugby Players Ireland. So we look after like player welfare and off pitch development. So really a lot of preparing players for when they retire. Because like that, they have a full career of sport, but having that dual career, having your university, getting your working experience while playing is so important because it does end and it's going to be difficult regardless. But just having that preparation there. And I suppose our jobs as player development managers is just to make sure that the player is able to be prepared for that, but also that they are, whole people. They're not just athletes. They're looked at as people as well.
When has that sort of started coming into into the game? Is that more of a recent thing and a developing role, or has that kind of been there behind the scenes for a long time? Because recent years you hear a lot of rugby players coming out, and I know Orla's brother is the same boat now. He's finished playing professional rugby and trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, how is that a developing and sort of a new approach in the IRFU and that, or has it been there for a while?
It's been there for a good while. So originally it would have been IRUPA, and it would have been a lot of past players coming together about contracts and just issues that they had with their contracts. So that's kind of where it all came about, a group of past players setting it up, but it has developed. And when I started back out of my master's in 2016, I think it was 2016. Oh God, I think it was, yeah, or 17 maybe. I'm getting old, but I'm there about 4 or 5 years anyway. And then so from that stage anyway, there's player development managers. So they developed the player development program. So it wasn't just representing players like contractually and having that, representation towards the IRFU and working alongside the IRFU. There was also that development sphere that's coming in. And I think there's a lot more, coming out of it, and other countries are starting to do it now. And we do a lot of information sharing and best practice sharing with other countries, looking at other sports. We've different, groups like EU athletes and FIFPro and all those other places that we do a lot of work with. But it is new enough, like in the last 10 years, I suppose. But it's just constantly developing. New stuff comes up for players every year, like even just COVID in general, like there'll be so much research that comes out on the impact of COVID on athletes, and a lot of players will either thrive or things will go wrong for them, especially maybe if they're coming near the end of their career as well. And across all sports, and it is across all sports. In Ireland, there's the GPA, there's players associations with jockeys, the Irish or the Institute of Sport, all those different places have those lifestyle advisors. And it is very much, it's just as important as your nutrition or your physio. Like we provide a mental health service, and if the head's not right, you're not going to be right. So it's so important, and I think it's only starting to be seen as important. I know Deirdre, who's our head of our program, she works up in Connacht, and she started to be integrated into Connacht a lot more, and that's had a huge impact. Whereas a lot of the time, say I work a lot with the women's 15s, I'm very much an individual from Rugby Players Ireland going in on a team. So bringing that in a bit more is great. And it really helps the players just have that somewhere to go to with stuff that's non-rugby related. They can talk rugby if they want. I just don't know anything about it, so it's fine. But it is non-rugby related stuff, and they can, like, even if it's just things like, you know, they need time off for an exam, having someone to go to help them and support that, you know, to be able to communicate with their lecturer, being like, this player needs this off because they're going to be traveling to France, but coming up with the solution then. So it's huge, because I don't think people who are looking at athletes understand the stresses that athletes go under, and what they do. And like that, we expect them to entertain us at the weekends, but, you know, will say nasty things online or something like that. So there's a huge amount of pressure that's on athletes that nobody sees. And I think especially during COVID, you know, like, those players have had to stay away from their families, you know, had to isolate, had to be stuck together for days on end just to train so that our country has something to look at. And I think that's such a pressure on them.
That must pose a challenge for you as well, of trying to come up with solutions for that. Is that sort of getting them in touch with, I don't know, sports psychologists or whatnot to try and help with the mental side? Because as you said, they can be isolated from their families for weeks, months, again, just for us. There's not much else on, so they're now in the spotlight that little bit more. So I'm sure you as you mentioned, like, you're kind of coming into that online bullying and stuff. Have those sort of, are they the main things that have sort of come up with player welfare now in the last few months? And if so, like, how do you tackle those challenges?
Yeah, like, it's a huge part of anyone's life. Like, you know, we all go through, like, we're all under pressure, and like that. It's hard when, you know, COVID affected everyone, and everyone's feeling it. We all have those days where you're just like, I barely want to get out of the bed. Like, just don't talk to me. I can be so scaldy sometimes. It's not even funny. And like, those days, I'm like, I'm in no position to be supporting players, because, like, I can barely, you know, support myself that day. But at the same time, I think it's nearly, when I think about it, sometimes I'm like, okay, for me, like, Pembroke is so important to me. I love Pembroke. I love playing. I really miss it. I really miss just training properly. And it does affect you, you know, you miss your friends, but you also miss that kind of you know, even if it's Lady Sevens, that training and training for a purpose. And a lot of the players, especially the women's 15s, they've had a World Cup, you know, postponed on them, and they've been training for the year with nothing to train for. And that's a huge thing for athletes. And sometimes when I think about what I'm feeling about my own sport, and it's not even part of my whole identity, whereas these players are, this is a massive part of their identity, it's so tough. And I think, like that, what we do is, I suppose, a lot of education and a lot of signposting, and showing players where they can get support, whatever it might be, whether it's that they're applying for a mortgage, and we build up contacts with different organizations there, or they want advice on a pension, or those kind of stuff as well, like all those, like, top line, you know, honest to God, you know, practical stuff. But then after that, we have developed a mental health service that's specific for athletes, and we've gotten, you know, a list of accredited counsellors, and we work with them in different locations around the country, and we can provide that service, and it's a safe place for players to go to. And like that, we also have our Tackle Your Feelings campaign, and the girls who work on that are just incredible. They've done such an amazing job with it. And actually, only, I think it was earlier in the week, they launched this video, which was, it was so impactful. I loved it. It was an animation of kids reading out tweets about professional rugby players, and they're all nasty tweets that you'd see online. And it was just that impact of, you know, kids reading out these horrible things that adults are writing and saying to other people, and just the impact that has. And they were actually my CEO's kids, and, like, you know, it was just, even them, they were like, why are we saying these things? Why are we saying these things to rugby players and stuff, like? And it's just, it is a huge issue, like the pressures, again, that are put on them. And but again, what we do is we just signpost and encourage them to look after themselves. And it could be like, we do workshops as well, whether it be on, like, resilience or sleep, or, you know, those kind of things, those as everything that kind of would support them in, you know, achieving their goals, but just looking after themselves as well as a whole.
Yeah, that the campaign, it hits home, doesn't it? Like, putting it into context, or taking it out of context. It's almost, we're so used to it on social media now that it's just like, it's people saying some shitty things.
Yeah.
Really, then you put it into context, you're like, how is this still going on, and how do we think that is okay to do for these guys? Like, I wonder, are we far away from, maybe, I don't know whether it's maybe in sport, I don't know what sport. Do you think we're far away from some sort of player strike, just being like, we're sick of this, or do you think it's just going to persist, um, and we just have to kind of live with it? It's part of this day and age.
I think it's everywhere. I think, like, I don't know if anyone watched like the Britney Spears documentary or the Tiger Woods documentary and all that. Like, there's an athlete, there's a pop star, like, I think when you do, put yourself out there, whatever your job might be. I think it was, I was laughing with two of my friends who were Zooming last night, and we were laughing. I don't know if you heard of Trisha's transformation. And she, one of her sayings is like, well, if you hang your arse out the window, don't be surprised if you get it slapped. And there is a bit of that, like, you kind of have to just, it's part of the role and part of the job. But I suppose it's about protecting yourself a little bit of, what you put out there. Are you willing to take what will be put out there? It's a dangerous place, the internet. So, you probably will get criticized, but like that, turn off your phone. Don't look at it. I know family members will see it maybe, and they might send you WhatsApps of it, and that's tough. But I suppose it is about, kind of protecting your bubble a little bit, and just, keeping what you can to yourself, and it's really up to the person. But it's everywhere. It's not just athletes. It's, you've reality stars, you've got everyone online, and I think it's gone to the stage. Like, I'm such an Instagram hun. I love it. It's great. But at the same time, it's not good for you either. Even like sometimes you'd be at home during COVID and be like looking at all these positive people, and you're just like, go away from me. I don't want your positivity. I just want to be miserable. And I think that can also be a bit negative as well. So definitely, like, it's a funny one, and I think everyone has a funny relationship with us. And I think there's a lot of comparison, whether it is an athlete and you're comparing yourself to another athlete, or you're just a girl or a fella that's comparing yourself to someone else. It's like they look a certain way, or they have a certain thing or whatever. And I just don't think, like, in normal days, you would have been from a certain town, and you would have been just in that town, and they would have been the people you would have been surrounded by. But now you're surrounded by these, people that are based in Australia, or these sunnier places or nicer places. And you're like, you're never going to win. You're never going to be satisfied if you allow yourself to be consumed by it. So I definitely find that just taking a break from it is nice, and just detoxing from it. And then also unfollowing some things that are not, serving me at all, like, as hippie as that sounds.
No, but at the end of the day, that's it. Maybe sometimes we kind of forget that. It's like, if you don't like it, just unfollow or block, and just be like, okay, cool. Well, that's not me. That's not what I'm about. So you mentioned then with your work with the rugby team, they obviously had a World Cup they were supposed to be going to, and now that's gone. Is that postponed for a year? Is it postponed for a year?
Yeah, I think 2022. Qualifiers will probably be this year, but it'll be 2022, the World Cup.
Have to qualify as well.
Yeah.
Like, so that's a lot hanging over. How do you prepare them or keep them tipping over to stay in that mind, stay in the right frame of mind and mindset? Because obviously there's maybe not necessarily anything to play for right now, but long game there is. It's similar to how, I suppose, how the Irish hockey women are dealing with the postponement of the Olympics, and how they've kind of had to, it took a year out of their life to prepare for that, and then they have to do that all over again. How do you kind of keep them ticking away from a player development point of view?
Yeah, well, I suppose hopefully they'll have a Six Nations, so they are still training for that, which is great, and I'm delighted for them, because it's been a tough year having to train so much and so intensely, and it's always going to be in a tough environment and an elite environment. So I think, to be honest, I think especially they only got the news this week, is kind of mourning the loss a little bit, of just kind of actually feeling like this is tough, because like, there's a lot of like these athletes, it's the same with the hockey girls and stuff, and they're not full-time professional athletes. So, they have other lives, and these other lives support their rugby and their sports. So I think, and it's for every athlete, I think the Olympics is coming up soon, and like that, we don't know what's going to happen really there either. Like, we don't know what's going to happen next Tuesday. So I think, like that, it's really tough to kind of you want to prioritize your sport, but you have to nearly think about your life as well. And I suppose for me, it's about just supporting them to make the decisions they need to make personally. I do a lot of work on, I suppose, like on that, we do like on that well-being side. So kind of whether that's, looking after your well-being, developing your resilience, and just, being a more rounded person and athlete. And I suppose bringing the two and how the two complement each other, how much from rugby you can bring into the real world and vice versa. So I suppose for me, what I try to encourage the athletes to do is to focus on other stuff as well, so that when something does go wrong, or whether it's a postponement of a big game or a big tournament, that it's not the be all and end all in their life, that they have other stuff going. Because I think like that, it's the same with everything. If you think about us all in COVID, all just honest God, normal people, we were taken out of our offices and we were taken out of our normal routines. And, I know my day-to-day routine was I'd be going to the office, I'd go to the gym, I'd come home, or I'd go down to Pembroke or whatever. And then suddenly I'm at home in my bedroom that I grew up in. And I'm like, oh my God. And so much has been taken from us and we've all had to adapt. And I think people are really adaptable. But a little bit of kind of just being like, okay, this is crap. I'm not going to be going to a World Cup, or I'm stuck in my bedroom at home, or whatever it is. But okay, what is next? And I suppose putting yourself in a position where you can still focus on other stuff and you're still moving forward in some shape or form. I think because I think we have a lot to learn from athletes. They've got such an amazing mentality. And even if you're just playing club hockey, at Division 9 or whatever, it's a huge skill to have, to be able to be disciplined, to be able to be focused, to be able to be competitive. And I think like that, you can bring that into your work. You can bring that into doing something on the side. You can, I think there's a lot of stuff that can be done to keep you ticking forward. But yeah, I think at the moment, I think it's just, accepting that this is really crappy as well is also positive.
Yeah, accepting is huge. That huge first step. If you don't, well, there's not much you can do next. Really like what you said, and I think this is something we've sort of talked behind the scenes a little bit about in a few of these. It's like, it's something I kind of think I maybe hope to get out of these interview series is that like speaking to people like yourself, and then the Duck Hook lads and how they've sort of come together. The carryover from sport into business and everyday life, I think, is a fascinating thing. The lessons that can be learned from it, and I think it helps you, particularly if you're in certain sports. Like I know obviously we've got quite a nice like community sort of atmosphere with hockey, and it's still amateur, so you don't have the big high heights, but it's the resiliency and all of that you learn from playing sport and playing with a team. I think if we get some insights out of that over the course of these interviews and whatnot, that is potentially something that I want to get out of this, because it is huge. The carryover and crossover is huge if you can find them and look for those lessons and learn from them and realize that they are transferable, skills. We mentioned there Instagram and your art, and that is the main reason we're here. I'm sure you got people hanging on numerous Pembroke members' walls. We've got one just outside in the hall of the dog Penny. Absolutely wonderful piece for Christmas. So tell us, have you always been into your art, and has it just been a constant sort of presence, or have you come and gone from it? What's your sort of journey and relationship with art?
Yeah, definitely came and gone from it for a long time. When I was a kid, was just really like artsy, like in a way, like we had Game Boys and stuff. We never really played them. Like anytime we were going somewhere, it's myself and my sister, and mom and dad would always bring like paper and pens, and we'd doodle or draw, and we'd be quiet as mice. Like we were not quiet kids, but give us a pen and piece of paper and we were fine. And like that was definitely a huge part. And I think my first like real memory of it, like being quite creative, was dad would have given me like one of those like one like diary notebooks, like page per day or whatever, just like an old one, like it was from years ago, and he gave me one of those because he was sick of carrying around individual pages and me just throwing them around and like one little drawing on the corner of one page. So he was like, right, we'll give her a book and she'll be happy out. And I definitely was. But I started like, I do all sorts of things in it. Like I write poems and like they're hilarious when you look back in them, like because I was like 5 and they were chronic, like poems about like a frog or something ridiculous, and then draw little pictures and stuff, and like that was fine. But I started doing this thing where I'd sketch people's hands. So like if I met someone, or if it's like an aunt or an uncle or one of mom and dad's friends or whatever, I'd get their hands and I'd kind of like go around them and doodle them, and then I get them to sign the inside. And it was just something I used to do. And like I used to get dogs, and like like my uncle's dog and stuff is in it, and like mad stuff. And then there's one I have of my granny, and like, which is lovely because like my granny's passed away, but she was like the last one that was alive, and have like a signature of her and stuff, which is nice to have. So that was kind of like, and I always called it my handbook, and that was kind of the first time I was quite creative.
Nice pun, love it.
Yeah, very good, very clever, you know. But yeah, so I was always into it and doodled away, but did it in school. And I think like that, I don't know if art in school really suited me. It was very much, you know, learn to draw up hair, learn to draw whatever. Bits was creative, and I did have good teachers. And like I was never an A student for any other subject except art. So I was quite average at everything else. But and like got involved in all the kind of, you know, set painting and stuff for any school plays and stuff. But my leaving cert didn't go well for me. It was my exam, or my practical piece was fine. It was the exam. I just read a question wrong, you know, it just goosed it. And yeah, and it brought my whole leaving cert down. And I think then I just fell out of love with it. It was just like, no, done with that. It let me down. we're done. And like that then went to college and stuff. So you kind of, you know, you lose touch with a lot of stuff and bits and pieces like that. But yeah, then especially just during COVID, started drawing, started painting, just at the kitchen table, doing little doodles. I kind of started a project at the start of COVID, like we were maybe a couple of weeks in, and like I was just missing friends and stuff. So I did like A5 drawings of like I did one, and I sent it to two of the girls I went to Cuba with. It was just like a little sketch of us like in a Cuban car, and just like a little quote. I can't even remember what it was, but just something like nice to post to them. I think I did a few for the Pembroke girls. I had a few friends that are working on the front line, and I did like hands with like, you know, surgical gloves on them. Just as a bit of a, you know, a pick me up, and kind of just started from there, really just got back into it.
So it was a COVID venture after all.
Yeah, it was a COVID venture.
Amazing. I hadn't realized. I thought it was I thought this has been a long-term thing. They're fascinating. Some of your paintings are outstanding. I mean, they're all outstanding. That sounds terrible. But they're amazing. And you've got some spin art on the wall. How did your spin art come about? Was that another thing? Have you been working with them for years, or
no? It was such an accident. Yeah. That's actually my first one. I'm pretty sure it's my first one. I just wanted to do something for my own room. Like I've got teal in my room and stuff. So, and I kind of only done it up a few months before COVID. And so I was like, oh, sure, look, I'll do something nice for myself. But no, like we have a garage next door to the house, and my dad's man cave. And they'd always been thinking about, you know, doing it up and making a little apartment, because it's a decent size. And like my sister was starting to go back to school and stuff, and she lives at home, and she was a bit concerned, like, you know, going back to school, COVID, bringing it back into the house and stuff. So we just kind of during the summer started on that project, and we were clearing the whole place out and bulldozing walls and stuff. And that was grand. And there was kind of a week between it being cleared and there being no builders in or anything like that. So dad was like to me, he's like, yeah, sure, you go on over there now and you can, you know, go mad. Like, and I really don't think they really realized what they'd let me kind of do. And I was kind of like, are you sure? I was kind of like a bold child. I was like, can I go over and like paint there? And he was like, yeah, go on, go over. I was like, cool. And like kind of was like, for a few days I was thinking, I was like, what will I do? Like I've got all this space and stuff. And like I'd seen loads of stuff like this online. I didn't come up with it. Like it's, you know, people do it. And also doesn't take much talent. It just takes a lot of mess. And I was lucky to have a space. And I went over, and like I kind of like dad and I were like, you know, kind of like figuring out things that he'd be really like good at, like engineering and things like that. And like we kind of got this plank of wood, and we were able to drill it onto the back of the canvas and stuff. And I got his drill, and so I'd put the canvas on the drill and spin it that way. So yeah, just went absolutely wild. And like I remember my mom coming over being like, oh my god, like, and it's really funny. My sister Fiona and Andy, they're living over in the garage, but if you open up one of the presses, there's a little gap between the back of the press, and like you can see a little bit of the wall, and there's just all this splashes of color like all over the wall, and you can just see it. Like Fiona's like, anytime I go to the dishwasher, like it's just there. And I'm like, sorry. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic. And has that been your most popular piece, or what is it? Was it the animals that coming into Christmas? Where have you found your most popular pieces?
I think it was funny because I kind of thought that it was just going to end at some stage, because like that, you know, obviously the garage was then built, so I had to get kicked out of that. But then we actually moved up to the attic. We cleared the attic and covered it with black paper. So I was able to have a studio still. So I kind of thought that the spin art, like I'd sell 5 and that was it, like whatever 5 I had. And like also like never intended to sell them. It was just contacted, you know, and they're like, oh, we like that, can we have it? And it's like brand. But anyway, moved up to the garage and just started going again. So I'd say the spin art definitely at the kind of during the summer, because I kind of stopped painting like animals and stuff like during the summer when I was doing all the spin art and stuff. So definitely that was really popular. And then tried different things and had different ways of doing the spin art and stuff. And you just got like, you knew the way the paint was going to travel, you knew what quality of paint, you know, you had to mix it with different, you know, mixers so it would spread properly and stuff. So like learned loads about it. There was a girl in a shop in Gorey, a local shop. She's been brilliant, like just kind of advised me on bits and pieces and stuff. I think she's an art teacher as well. But yeah, that's been great, just learning and stuff. But yeah, I'd say the spin art definitely during summer. But then when hockey actually came back, I came back to Dublin. And it was just like, yeah, that's it, done now. Just kind of was like, I'm gonna have to put that to bed for a few months until I can go home. And yeah, I just started doing the animals and they just kicked off as well. People just loved certain animals and people loved their dogs. Yeah.
They do love their dogs. Especially for us, we aren't able to get a dog because we got rules against it. So it was like, it seemed like a no-brainer. I was like, well, how do we get some penny or a dog in here that doesn't involve actually having their furry little paws running around the place?
They're tidy.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have any mess to follow to clean up after. What's next for you then? What do you plan to continue? Is it spin art now? What's the next project? Or what can you see is coming next?
Yeah, like I suppose I never really planned for it, so it's a funny one. I won't lie, I haven't been up to the studio in a while because it's so cold up there. So I have a spin art order, and also I can't get canvases. It's really hard to get canvases at the moment because everyone's painting and we're in lockdown and stuff. So, and Brexit as well has had a huge impact on that. So yeah, I have a few orders in to get done over the next week or two, but kind of did take a bit of a break after kind of Christmas. Christmas was intense. Like I had at one stage, I had 2 weeks kind of left to get all my orders out, and I had about 30 canvases to paint. And I was just like, oh, I was doing all-nighters and stuff. Like it was crazy. And I was doing it from my bedroom in Dublin, which was of no size. And like my housemates are so funny. Like they were like bringing me coffee and like, you know, like they're doing great. Like, and I come down, I'm like, I have 31 left. And like, it was like this big family affair and stuff. So it was funny. But yeah, I think Christmas was so intense and like that I was hand delivering everything because I hadn't really mastered my packaging very well and things like that. And like I've in one of the rooms next door, I have this massive big thing of bubble wrap. But I couldn't really be bringing that up to a rented house and stuff when you're sharing. So even just being home has meant that I can actually start posting more stuff and everything like that. Like it's small things, but like little logistical things. But yeah, I probably actually one thing I do want to start doing is people. But I suppose want to do it right. I've had a lot of requests of people being like, oh, can you do like my granny or granddad or whatever? And I'm like, I'd love to, but I just don't think I do it justice because I've never had formal training at all. I think there's a lot of stuff I could learn and I need to learn. Like I don't want it to like change my style, but again, I'm quite young and new at it, like selling it anyway and doing a lot of art that I definitely want to do a bit of study and bit of like, you know, not even like a formal course around it, but just want to get into people a bit better. So but yeah, I've had loads of ideas, kind of maybe doing a few like actual, you know, meaningful pieces that maybe have a message. Think that would be nice. Like a lot of my stuff is fun. Like, you know, I love like the ostriches and the flamingos and all that kind of fun stuff, but I think I would like it to get a bit more meaningful. But again, like that, I think the second I stop enjoying it is when I stop kind of trying to sell it, because it did happen so organically. And it is a hobby, because it's literally the only time that I'm not thinking about something else. It's like my mindfulness. Like I'll put on the headphones and a few hours and I'd lift up my head and I'd be like, oh my God, the time is just flowing by. Haven't thought about anything other than colors. Like,
yeah, that's great to have an outlet like that, because that's possibly where some people struggle with, particularly with COVID at the moment. You're just not having that sort of hobby or something. It's TV or it's more scrolling, and don't not have something that you can switch off to. You don't have to be particularly good at it, just something that you go and switch off, whether it's like burying your head in a book, playing music, whatever it is. I think we might maybe realize that actually we've cut out a lot of that stuff just for work and other things. And now we've sports either. There's another place where you kind of, disappear off to for a few hours. How long, do you mind me asking, how long does it take to take a to do a picture ish, roughly speaking? Like, because you said what you like 30 to do in like 2 weeks.
That was a tough few weeks. It would depend, like the spin art, depending on what someone wants, like that you could have like loads of specific colors and stuff like that. Spin art might take maybe an hour to do, but it takes like 3 days to dry. So they do take a long time. Just because you have so much paint on a canvas. And then there's other ones that I've done which you kind of, I suppose, swing a bit of a paint, you're kind of throwing it at an angle, but there's a massive amount, like a big puddle of paint kind of, and you just don't want to move it too much. So like if I was to paint one now, I'd probably leave it up in the studio for 2 days and really wouldn't, there's not a massive amount of space to be doing loads. So yeah, I suppose to get a spin art done, it would take the bones of 3 days, but you know, I suppose an hour to kind of do. And then animal wise, or like a canvas, again, depending on the size, I like to kind of do them and not leave them. Some artists are better at kind of leaving them, but I just get so engrossed in it that I'm like, I want to finish it. But then oftentimes I've kind of gotten better into routine that I would paint it, but then I'd leave the detail maybe for the next day or whatever. So yeah, an animal might take the bones of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, just depends on what it is and the size of it. I've had some that's taken me a couple of days just because, you know, they could be going well, I could like them, but I've so many here that I don't like and I do not share, and I don't I just don't like them at all. And I, like, it's funny because like mom or Fiona or dad would be like, oh, I love them, they're class, you know. I'm like, I hate them, I absolutely hate them. Like, just I'd have them facing around the wall. I'm like, don't look at me, you know. Yeah, I do reject a few of my animals, it's awful.
Oh, that's it's time incentive, I suppose, time intensive even. But yeah, again, that sort of headspace, I suppose, is definitely worth it, and you get to now sell it.
Yeah.
Would you work in sort of series and just kind of do blocks? Because I know you said obviously it was super intense, and maybe you don't want to get back to that where it's like all-nighters just to get a piece of art. Because if ever there was a surefire way for it to become a chore, that's certainly it. You mentioned possibly doing some more meaningful pieces. Would that be sort of like around sort of issues today, or informed by your sort of work and work with players and stuff like that, or where could you see some of that inspiration coming from?
Yeah, like I did one there recently, and it was like, just like, again, it was a like a profile of a girl. Like, I wasn't really mad, and like, again, I was picking at, like, I was like, skill wise, I was like, I have so much I need to learn about just drawing people, and it's just a lot harder than drawing animals and stuff. But I did do one where I suppose it went a bit wild. It went a bit mad. I don't know what kind of mindset I was in, but I kind of wrote words all around the face in like random kind of parts, and it was all a bit crazy, and there was chalk involved, there was acrylics, there was all sorts. But it was words, I suppose, kind of that, you know, are put on women and what they should, whether it was beauty or, you know, being polite or whatever, words that I suppose are boxes that a lot of females feel that they have to be put into. And I just really enjoyed doing that one because, like, for me, that would be a big topic. You know, I work with a lot of female athletes and stuff, and they get a lot of stuff thrown at them. You know, I am a female, and you know, like, there's certain things that, like, you know, will appeal to you. And I really enjoyed that one because it was quite meaningful, and it wasn't just, you know, an elephant or something, you know. And I love doing those ones, but there was just, I feel like I would have appealed a lot to, I would have been speaking a lot for like friends and stuff, and I did get a lot of messages on it, just like being like, oh, I love this, like, this is class, this really is, you know, insightful and stuff like that. And, you know, it wasn't really about the art, it was more about the message, and I really enjoyed doing that. Like that, I think it'd be very heavy if you were doing that all the time, because there's nothing nicer than just, you know, doing an ostrich or something simple, and it's just nice, and we'll just, you know, do it for a few hours and we'll go to bed and sleep easy, you know. But I did really enjoy that one, and I think there's lots of stuff. Again, I don't think art has to be meaningful. I think there's a lot of pressure on art to be meaningful or to, you know, have this deep meaning. Like, I always wonder, like, you know, when you think of like all these famous artists like Van Gogh or something like that, it's like, did he ever think we'd be sitting in a Leaving Cert art class studying like what his mindset was? It's like, he was as high as a kite. The man cut off his ear. Like, you know, he did not think that. And like, I hope to God I'm never that person. Someone's in a Leaving Cert class, like, what was she thinking? And I was like, probably nothing. Like, guarantee nothing.
Yeah. Just going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because sort of I stepped away from playing guitar and music and stuff for a very long time and got out of the habit of it, and it's something that sort of particularly COVID, but just the last few years I tried to sort of work my way back into. And that was one of the things that sort of started to help free me up a little bit. And I think it was one of the things that prevented me before, of like, it had to mean something, or it had to be like good enough to be on a record label or something. It's like, no, it doesn't. All you have to do is go ahead and play along the fucking songs and enjoy yourself. And if something comes out, great. But it doesn't have to. You just go noodle. It doesn't have to mean. Just go play. Even now, I'm like, we're Christian and I actually were having conversations about sort of like recording and stuff like that. I was like, why would I want to try learn how to record and try to write stuff all at the same time? I was like, I just want to have a bit of fun with it. I want to be able to play Sweet Child of Mine. And I was like, well, there's a song. I'll go put it in. See, can I recreate that rather than worrying about having to try to write a bloody song? I was like, let me go play and just enjoy and take the meaning of it. I'm never gonna be Slash. Does mean I can't.
You could.
Never. Don't have the hair. Don't have the hair. No amount of wigs are gonna stay on this bald head. No, but that just that freedom. It was freeing to have that sort of feeling of like, it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything. It just has to be for fun and to enjoy it. And who cares? And if something then comes of it, great. Right? Like you said, those lads are all high as a kite. They're just having the crack, painting. Like, they didn't think anything was going to come of it. It's like,
I think that's what I'm missing.
Yeah. So with your pieces, have you thought about like? So obviously, painting then is quite intensive. Have you thought of sort of doing a piece and then selling it as prints rather than you having to paint every single piece that you do? Particularly, I was thinking like more if you're doing a piece that maybe is a statement or whatever, that rather than having to try and recreate that multiple times, that you can make one and then sell it in print form. Has that ever come across your plate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people have sent me Audrey Hamilton. She's an artist and I love her stuff. I think it's class. Like, and like her, she was an actress, I think, over in LA, and just started painting one day and it just went wild for her. And she does that. She does prints and stuff. I do like, I suppose, selling originals. And also they're extremely affordable. I'm only starting out. A lot of it's just getting my name out. There's a little bit as well. This is all part-time gig. I have a full-time job, you know, like if I go back to Dublin, my studio's in Wexford and just all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it definitely has been thought about. Again, I think like something that you were touching on there, that whole like, you know, the pressure. I think if people are in any way creative or have some sort of talent or skill, the pressure we put on ourselves to be brilliant. I think I'm still working through that. Like, if you told me this time last year I'd have sold, you know, nearly 80 paintings, I would be like, no, like absolutely not, like that's insane. Whereas now I'm like, oh my God, that did happen. But I think I'm still kind of digesting it a little bit. And I am hard on myself when I do, like, I always laugh, like, you know, some girls would be like peppering about putting up a bikini photo on Instagram. I'm like, oh my God, is my ostrich going to get a lot of likes? And you're just like, that's mental. So I think I'm still getting through that piece. But yeah, definitely. I think it's probably a more strategic way of, I suppose, running an art business. And I think if it does get any bigger, I would. I think the spin art I would always keep as originals, because I just think they're quite like I even like just even this one, like this one's so old, but I look at it and I'm like, there's so many different parts of it. Like one corner is like really green and bright and stuff, and the other corner is all muddled in together and stuff. And like I just think there's something really intense about that. So I don't think I do prints of the spin art, but maybe the animals, I think they could be nice as prints, and then accessible to everyone.
Yeah, the certainly the bespokeness of those spin art pieces and stuff is certainly one of the things that's appealing. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I find them fascinating. I find them a little mesmerizing. Like, it just, I'm almost like finding it hard to not look at.
When I'm on like a call or something, I'm like, look at my art.
Forget what I'm saying. Just look at the art. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, Aoife, then tell us, where can we find you?
Yes, Instagram really, or Facebook, Aoife Lane Art, kind of that way. A lot of the time, I always did say that I just have a pile of art that I just post and people can buy as going, but like I just out the door, kind of, in the sense that people can get commission pieces. So whether it's their own dogs or whether it's particular animals that they like, or spin art, or they have an idea. I've been approached with so many ideas, and that's what I love, actually. I don't have to come up with my own ideas sometimes. It's just whatever people say. So yeah, Aoife Lane Art, have a look there. A lot of stuff is in the stories, a lot of videos and things like that. So have a look and see what you think.
Amazing. How long until we have an Aoife Lane piece of art in Pembroke?
Oh, well, I have to get some purple and gold out. I don't know. Maybe we could do like a mural or something like that. That'd be fun.
That would be.
We could do a social around it. We could do like an art class.
Oh my
A few
God.
bottles of wine, mural, painting. Great.
Being not socially distanced anymore, seeing people,
Oh,
humans in person.
so nice. Be lovely.
One day. Aoife, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Loved hearing about the development stuff. It's been great. And your art is outstanding. And I have no doubt we will have more pieces on our wall by the. Look, you've been an absolute treat to talk to. It's been great. Remind us again where the people can find you to get their hands on their own, or even just to follow along and see some of the magic.
Yep, at Aoife Lane Art. Yeah, Aoife Lane Art. I nearly forgot it there for a second. Yeah, Aoife Lane Art on Instagram.
On Instagram. Brilliant. Aoife, you've been a treasure. Thanks very much.
Lovely stuff. Thanks so much, Simon.
No worries.